We go ahead with the second intervention, which is collective work, and which deals with geographic inequalities. It's Andrea Pietrolucci, that's right?
Yeah, it's right.
Okay, so the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Okay, you can hear me. So, good afternoon to everyone. Today we will going to present a work which is a joint work with Maria Strumenti, Nazareno Panighella, and Stefano Cantalini from the University of Milan. I am Andrea Pietrolucci. I'm a postdoctoral researcher at the University of Trento, and today we'll present this work focusing on school mobility, the effect of school mobility across the 8th and 10th grade in Italy, across marginal and central areas in Italy. So to start, give you a very short idea of the literature in this topic. There is extensive research on the effect of geographical mobility of students on their achievements in education. In particular, two main kinds of mobility have been framed in this kind of literature. First is the effect of school mobility, and we intend whether students change the school they're attending. This can be divided also in other types, whether it is structural, so it's between one grade and another, one level and another, or not structural. It is commonly thought in terms of mobility within a given year. And then the second effect is the effect of residential mobility, which accounts for the relocation of the whole household to a different area, to a different part of the country, also a different country, or a different neighborhood. Well, in the literature, different mechanisms have been framed, trying to investigate which are the effects of school mobility. In this framework, it is defined as school mobility, so the effect of change in school can involve some costs for the students. In particular, it's related to the interruption of the continuity in the learning process, but also it can be linked to some negative reactions of the student to the change in the programs, but also in grading standards. However, school mobility effects have also been found to have a positive effect on the students' achievement because, for example, of the improvement of student quality, or also for the effect of peers. However, concerning the effect of residential mobility, instead there are as well in the literature have been framed some costs of moving, including the disruption of social ties of the student in consequence of moving to a different neighborhood or to a different context, but also the event of moving from one area to another. It is considered a stressful and time-consuming event per se. And also, however, there were some benefits, for instance, for the improvement in the housing quality and also in neighborhood services and all these different kinds of neighborhood effects. The empirical evidence, however, on both the effects of residential mobility and school mobility are a bit puzzling. There is no clear-cut evidence on it. In particular, there are some studies on school mobility which found a negative school effect related to school change. So change in school reduces academic achievements of students on average, of course. However, there are other studies which find no effects, and others which account more precisely, for example, for the quality of the school destination, finds that effects are heterogeneous depending on the school quality of destination. On the other hand, studies on residential mobilities, some have been found negative effects of residential mobilities. Others, instead looking at the regional effect of residential mobility depending on the distance of the change of the movement, found a positive effect for short distance mobility and a negative effect for long distance residential mobility. However, within this literature, there are key research gaps that most of the study address school mobility all in terms, frame this school mobility all in terms of the dichotomous change. So whether a school, students have been moving to a school or remain in the same school. And only few studies have focused on accounting which is the role played by the geographical dimension in school mobility. Indeed, the few studies accounting, for example, for the distance and other geographical variables only focus on residential mobility. So the main aim of the study is to investigate which is the effect of school mobility on students' educational achievement along a divide which is particularly relevant in the Italian territory between central and marginal areas. So before starting with the research questions and the methods, I want to present a definition that we use to divide, the classification that we use to distinguish between central and marginal area in Italy. We make reference to the Strategia Nazionale per le aree interne, which is a strategy defined by the Ministry of the Italian Cohesion in 2014, which divides the municipalities in the Italian territory into groups, so inner and central area, that we label marginal and central area. First, in the central area are defined all the municipalities which are defined labeled as polo or polo intercomunale if there are more than one. Municipality, which are defined by the following essential services, so they have at least a large hospital, both upper secondary education schools, including both academic and vocational tracks, and a medium or small railway station. Then, accordingly, there are the municipalities which are labeled as cintura, which they have a distance, travel distance in terms of road travel time of 20 minutes or lower, and then we have all the other municipalities which are considered to be marginal areas, which are the different classification. However, it's from a distance which is 20 minutes or higher from a port, so from a municipality which have those three essential services. There are intermedio, periferico, and finally ultra-periferico, which is travel distance of more than 75 minutes. So, moreover, Italy is a particularly interesting case study because the distribution of schools across the territory is vary considerably depending on the level of education. Indeed, there is a lower territorial capillarity of upper secondary schools in the territory. For example, we see the distribution of primary schools across the Italian territory. They are well widespread in most of the municipalities. If we see at the same, more or less, the same distribution at the lower secondary level, but we see at the upper secondary school, it is evident that they are concentrated in the main urban areas and in the central areas, with a strong divide in particular between the north and the south. Also, this distribution of schools across the territory lead to a substantial school mobility happening from the peripheral area, marginal area, to the central area, from starting the step from lower secondary school to upper secondary school. And then if you see the flows between students being enrolled in different schools in different areas, we see that between the 5th and 8th grade there is low mobility, only for lower than 5%. Instead, between 8th and 10th grade, the mobility is substantial. 35% of students change his area between grade 8 and grade 10. And also during upper secondary school, this mobility is pretty stable. So we define two key research questions. The first is whether school mobility from peripheral to central area have an influence on the educational achievement of the students in 10th grade. And then we also ask whether the school mobility effect is heterogeneous, depending on first the travel distance from the residence, or at least the school attended in 8th grade, and the school attended in 10th grade, and whether it is heterogeneous depending on the gap in the school quality, as measured as the difference score in SVOLSI tests in 8th and 10th grade, between the school attended in 8th grade and the school attended in 10th grade. So, to perform our analysis, we use data on INVALSI between 2012 and 2021. In particular, we take two cohorts, so the cohorts which were observed in fifth grade in 2012 and 13 and 13 and 14, and which are then later observed in the following grades. So we defined, in particular, a balanced panel, so a panel having the complete observations of students which were observed in peripheral areas in 5th and 8th grade, and which are later on observed again in the 10th and 13th grade. As for analytical strategy to try to model the effect of school mobility, we rely on a difference in differences approach. So in particular, our outcome of interest are the INVALSI test scores in Italian reading and math, which are standardized by grade and year. So we interpret the variation of the effect in terms of the relative position of each student on the national distribution of year and grade, divided by year and grade, also to be able to compare INVALSI scores across grades and different years. As a treatment, we define the effect of being mobile from peripheral to central areas in school attendance at upper secondary level. So the control group is defined, includes all those students which attend school in peripheral areas in all grades, so in 5th, 8th, 10th, and 13, whereas the treatment group are the students which, in the step from lower secondary school and upper secondary school, move from the peripheral to the central area. So to account, of course, in this context, it's important to account for the parallel trend of assumptions, so to see that before the treatment, the trends of both groups are parallel, thus meaning that the underlying effect is the same in both groups before the treatment, so before moving, and then we, of course, compute the average treatment effect by subtracting the difference in grades in 10 between the two groups in 8th grade minus the same difference before the treatment, so in 8th grade. We also specify a restriction for common support. Indeed, depending on the share of students moving in a given municipality, there are different probability of being treated, so of moving. So we exclude from our sample those individuals which are in municipalities in 8th grade where nobody moves, so there are no peers moving, or all peers are moving. So in this way, we are able to compare two populations which are not that heterogeneous, but have the same, let's say, probability of experiencing school mobility. Also, for the heterogeneous analysis, for the second research question, we define the distance as the road travel time between the school attended in 8th grade and the school attended in 10th grade for those that have experienced mobility, whether the difference in school quality is the difference in the school average in INVALSI test scores, so average between Italian and mathematics, between the schools, so it's never the school level, between 8th and 10th grade. So we can go to the results. So the first question we asked whether the school mobility, so the effect of experiencing school mobility from marginal to central areas has an influence of the achievement of the students as measured by the INVALSI test scores. So here's the results. So on the left panel we have the results for Italian, on the right panel for math, and we have the treatment group, which the control group, which is the black line, which are students who attend the school in peripheral areas in both grades, so they have not been moving in all grades, whether the treatment group, the red lines, are those students who attend the school in peripheral areas in 5th, 5th, and 8th grade, and then move to central areas in 10th and 13th grade. So you can see, for example, looking at the parallel trend assumption, it's likely to hold, so the two groups have the same trend, both before the treatment, but after, so in the step between 8th and 10th grade, we found there is a positive effect of mobility. So compared to those remaining in marginal area, those that attend the upper secondary school in central area shows on average higher scores, with an effect that is a bit higher for mathematics. Here also the effect is 0.06 standard deviations. So it is not really a strong effect, for example, to have an idea of the magnitude of the effect, the unconditional difference between, for example, the north and the south is about 0.4. So it's about 1/8 of the unconditional difference in performances between students in the north and the students in the south, to have an idea. But however, it's consistent results. But what happens if we look at these results, taking account that could be an important heterogeneity in the effect between students moving to schools at the short distance and to students moving to school at a long distance. So here's the results. So the black line is always the control group, so the students who haven't moved, and the yellow line are the students who move a short distance, so with a road travel distance of 25 minutes or less, and the pink line is those that moves to a school from 25 minutes or more, so a long distance. And as we can see for both Italian, but in particular for mathematics, those that move, but move far away, so all to a school, which in turn travel costs, etc., have the same performances of those not moving and attend the school in peripheral area. Conversely, if there is a short move, but with a movement from peripheral to central areas, there is a positive and actually quite strong effect. Finally, we see this the same design by accounting for the heterogeneity by the difference in schooling quality, and as expected, for those students who move to a worse school, there is a negative effect. For those students moving to the same school quality, there is, compared of course to the control group, there is more positive effect and a strong positive effect for those moving to a school with better school quality, which is the green line. So, to conclude, so the school mobility from peripheral areas to central area has a small but positive effect of the achievement on educational achievement of students measured as INVALSI, the score for both Italian and mathematics. However, it's interesting to know that distance plays a paramount role in shaping this effect, for there is a positive effect for short distance and no effect for movement on long distance. And also there is quite large heterogeneity depending on the gap in schooling quality between the school of origin and the school of destination. As a further development, here we present a result on the total effect, and we carried out some heterogeneity analysis, but we are planning to move into performing some additional analysis to identify which are the main factors explaining this school mobility effect. So, thank you very much.